Imam Al-Jawzi rahimahullah, he then says, quote, and when it says that is what has been admonished, it means that the admonishment in this ayah is referring to the fact that the wali cannot forbid the one who he is guarding to return to her husband. This is not valid. And when Allah says that is more pure for them, it means that it's more pure that the women should be returned to their husbands rather than being separated from them. And that is better and more righteous, meaning it's better for your hearts so that you don't have any doubt, and so that love continues to grow between them, and that they are gathered in the best way possible without any crookedness in this affair. And when the Exalted One says, and Allah, He knows and you do not know, that means that Allah knows that whether or not the married couple love each other, as said by Ibn Abbas and Al-Dhahak. And secondly, He knows your intent on what you're trying to do, whether it is in this life all the way up until when you're to die, or whether it is to your end and what is going to happen to you when you meet your end. Allah the Exalted has then said, وَالْوَالِدَاتُ تُرْضِعْنَ أَوْلَادَهُنَّ حَوْلَيْنِ كَامِلَيْنِ لِمَنْ أَرَادَ أَنْ يُتِمَّ الرَّضَاعَةَ وَعَلَى الْمَوْلُودِ لَهُ رِزْقُهُنَّ وَكِسْوَتُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ لا تكلف نفس إلا وسعها لا تضار والدة بولدها ولا مولود له بولده وعلى الوارث مثل ذلك. And the mothers shall breastfeed their children for 2 complete periods. For whoever wants to complete the period of breastfeeding. And on the one that has been given birth to is there to be sustained these women and clothed in righteousness. The soul is not discharged with more than what it is able to bear. No mother is to be harmed because of her child, and nor is any father to be made to suffer because of his child. When the Exalted One has said in this ayah, the mothers breastfeed their children, Al-Qadi Abu Ya'la the elder has said, now this matter is talking about and is directed to the fathers who are taking responsibility, because they have to look after the wives so that they can breastfeed. Look at the situation. This matter is looking at whether or not the mother is to receive a wage for breastfeeding. Is this ayah general in all mothers? Well, there are 2 positions regarding this. Firstly, it is specific to the women that have received talaq. This is the position of Sa'id ibn Jubair, Mujahid, Al-Dhahak, Al-Sudai, and Muqatil. However, the second position is that it is general in all wives and women that have been divorced. Because of this, we say that she's given a wage for herself due to the breastfeeding of her child, whether she's with her husband or she's divorced. And this is the position of Al-Qadi Abu Ya'la and Abu Sulaiman al-Dimashqi. Now the word 2 periods here means a year. And when it says 2 complete years, that's referring to 2 years of breastfeeding, in which she shall receive the wage. Close quote. So, the woman that breastfeeds your children, according to Imam Ibn Al-Jawzi, Al-Qadi Abu Ya'la, and others, she is entitled to a wage. She's entitled. This is a forgotten ayah. Surat Al-Baqarah, the 2nd surah, ayat 233. She's entitled to a wage. She's not required to breastfeed your children. So the wife says, I want a wage for this. Some people would employ wet nurses and pay them. Some people would pay their wives. Some people would pay servants, what have you. But she says, I don't want to breastfeed the child, or I want a wage for the breastfeeding of the child. You need to agree upon some sort of settlement for this. I had to go through it because you can't hide from the ayat. You run across them. Wife is reading the ayah one day, stumbles across it. What do you do? No, that ayah doesn't mean that. I mean, what can you do? So they have rights, just like the husband has his rights. And this is one of the rights of the wife. So whatever she agrees on, this is different to her maintenance. We'll get to the ayat on maintenance. You say, well, I've got to maintain them as well? Yes, you have to maintain them as well. This is different too. So you buying food and paying the rent and all these other things, that's one thing. Her maintenance, that's something else. Maintaining your wife. My standard of living is 200 pounds a week. It's my standard of living. Okay. Or my standard of living is 1,000 pounds a week. It's my standard of living. Okay. And I expect to be paid for breastfeeding your children. You can't combine it unless she says, well, I'll allow you to combine it, but you can't say, yeah, what's this? Well, this is for the breastfeeding and the maintaining. No, you can't do that. Not unless she gives permission. So these are from the rights of the female. This is outside of you putting food in her mouth and all these other things. Well, I'm paying the rent. I'm doing this. That's fine. But you're not maintaining her. I am. No, you're not. I have to pay her for the breastfeeding. Unless she waives it. If she waives the right and says, well, that's okay. I don't mind. Or we can't because we don't have the money. Okay, well, in the future, inshallah, if we get money, then we can agree upon something. Okay, because don't waive that. That's your right. Don't waive your rights. You don't do that in court when you go to court and you can get a settlement or a payout from court. Well, you can either take the settlement or you can just say it's okay and walk away. No one does that. I want my 5,000 pounds or my 5,000 rupee or my $5,000. Give me my money. And this is a right that Allah has put in His book. So the breastfeeding for 2 complete years, whoever wants to complete the breastfeeding, and the woman shall not suffer on account of her child. She shall be clothed and given her sustenance with righteousness. So again, this is a totally different issue. So you pay her for the breastfeeding and she's clothed and sustained with righteousness. She's not to be harmed. No soul is burdened with more than it can bear. The mother is not harmed on account of her child, nor the father on account of his child. So this is the matter as it stands. We need to look very carefully and examine and think and remember that the breastfeeding and all these things are from the virtues that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given. Now, the final question is, someone may say, well, this ayah assumes, and the women shall breastfeed their children for 2 complete years. Is the assumption in this ayah that it is wajib to breastfeed, or is it permitted only without any compulsoriness to breastfeed. Okay, this is where the issue is. We'll come to this. Imam Al-Jawzi rahimahullah, he says, quote, the ulama have differed. The ulama have differed in this particular statement in the ayah. Some of them have said that the ayah is a decisive ayah, that some of its judgment may have been abrogated. And there are different judgments attached to it. One is the completion of the breastfeeding, and it is compulsory for the father to pay the maintenance for breastfeeding for 2 years. The judge in the court can force him to do that. Then also, it is established that it is impermissible to force the breastfeeding for longer than the 2 years. This has been narrated from Qatada ibn Da'imah, Al-Rabi' ibn Anas, and others. Close quote. So this matter is then, if the husband, if they agree to it, he's got to pay it. And if he doesn't, an alim, one of the ulama in the court, he can force him to pay it. It's something you have to pay it. So I say this again. The sisters and the brothers, they should learn their rights. Learn what Allah has revealed. Learn what's compulsory for you. Because it will go a long way from getting rid of any confusion. If the men know what's expected of them, this is what my rights are, and then this is what my responsibilities are and what's expected of me, then they won't have the problems that they normally have. And if the women know these are my rights, these are the things that are expected of me, then they'll know. But the moment you get into a situation where you neglect your rights, well, you're in violation of the law. And when you're in violation of the law, you can be seized. You can be seized. And your ignorance of the revealed law can cause you problems later in life. We see this in the earthly laws that people try to implement over us. I didn't know that going 90 miles an hour in a 20 mile an hour zone, I didn't know that. You didn't see the electronic sign reading, please go 20. I can't read. Why are you driving? Well, I do so for my grandmother because she has to go. So you're driving without a license. You're speeding, you're going 90 miles an hour in 20 mile an hour zone with no license. You can't read. And you're driving your old grandmother, to the hospital and everything else. And you're going and you've entered in and turned into the hospital lane the wrong way in. So now you've come into the exit lane and endangered other people. I didn't know. They won't accept that as an excuse. So if you don't know what Allah has revealed and what your rights are, you can't say, well, someone else will do it for me. Maybe they will, but maybe they won't. Because not everyone will be as scrupulous. And some people, when they realize what your rights are, if you don't put them forward, they'll try to take them away. I deal with this on an everyday basis. The man realizes he wants the wife, brother, go easy on what is being taught. SubhanAllah, I don't want problems at home. They don't want problems at home. The key is keep them dumb so they don't do anything. Because the moment questions start getting asked, well, how come you're not doing this? How come you're not doing this? How come you're not doing that? This, that, and a whole list starts to form. And all of a sudden, their framework of the Muslim sister, the world that they were in that was so small, all of a sudden becomes really wide. And they start asking questions. And the husband that had kept them dumb runs out of answers. And he says, I don't know. And this is where the phone calls come in, where they say, you shouldn't be teaching them these things. A woman with knowledge is a dangerous thing. And they quote the fabricated hadith, don't teach your women to read and write. I don't know where they found it. I don't know how they found it. It's always guys that find these things. But you have to be aware of these things. Learn what's required for you. أقول قولي هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم أستغفر الله إن الله غفور رحيم يرحمني الراحمين. Now we've covered over a lot of material today. inshallah, looking at it. Next week we will be coming to the ayat. We'll be finishing the ayat about breastfeeding, and then looking at the ayat about the widow, the women that are widows, and then women that are receiving proposals while in their iddah, and then also women who talaq is pronounced upon them in their monthly cycle. What does that mean? And does it take effect and doesn't it take effect? I didn't mention anything today because I just want you to get down point by point by point. So inshallah today you should be a little bit stronger in the next area in talaq. Is there a question over what we've covered today? Yes?
And then if the husband and wife and have like an argument, and the wife like says that because the result of the argument, I'm gonna go stay at my mother's house or something for a while. Does that count as like talaq?
Okay. Question is, if the wife says to the husband after an argument, I'm going to stay at my mother-in-law's house or my mother's house for a period of time, does this count as a talaq? No. Because the woman, her two talaqs for the woman are khula and fasakh, okay, which have to be said and carried out by either a panel or another person and agreed to by the husband and the parties involved. The talaq of the husband is by wording and can take effect by wording. But her merely saying, I'm going to stay, now that can be an indication of problems. If she went and stayed at the mother's house and then he said, yes, I renounce you, or stay there, then that would be a divorce because of what he said. But her merely going there herself or saying, I want to get a divorce, her words don't affect anything by her statement.
Her husband tells her to go stay for a while, to go to your mother's house for a while, and we need to separate for a while.
Okay.
But not intending to be like saying that, because then when you have an argument, you're around.
Yeah, you want to cool off and everything. Okay, so if the husband says to his wife, I think you and I need to separate for a little while to cool off because of the problems that have happened and everything else. This will be valid, but they still will need to reconcile if they're going to try to protect the marriage from the integrity of the marriage being dented. They still need to have a reconciliation where there's a meeting between either two judges from the family or someone that can come in. Because if it stays like that for too long, see, people start to develop feelings of anger and resentment. The person that had to leave feels, why am I outside of the house? This isn't right. Especially if there's children. The children start asking questions. How come we don't see you like we used to? And when are you coming home, Dad? Or when are you coming home, Mom? They start having these questions. So it's best to try to resolve it as soon as possible. But yes, the woman's words do not affect talaq unless it's in the case of khula or fasakh. But the man's word is affecting of talaq. When he states the word, he's held responsible for his word, whereas a woman is not. Is there another question? Another question? No. Okay. If there's no question, then inshallah we'll convene from here. Again, next week we start with the rest of ayah 233, and inshallah it looks to be the case that we will be finishing the rest of the book of talaq at that time. So inshallah at the end of this, hopefully we will have a strong basis of what talaq is. And so when cases come to you, because inshallah you were the new generation, when cases come to you, you will be able to say, oh no, it's this, or oh yes, this is how. You'll be able to deal with it. If you're ever in that situation, you'll know the ayats to go straight to. But protect yourself and protect your rights, because if you cede your rights, you lose your ability to defend yourself. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك واشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك انه غفور رحيم يا ارحم الراحمين. السلام عليكم.